to Owning Life, a podcast about embracing the beginning, the end, and the messy middle of our lifetimes. My name is Karen Jokotifa Alaye, and I'm your host today, and it's through my work in death care that I have learned about the importance of owning life. To me, owning life is a series of little steps that cause you to lean into every moment. It's following the breadcrumbs of purpose. It's about seeing your shadow and acknowledging it. Instead of making excuses, you're making decisions. Instead of life passing you by, you are taking action, even if that action is rest. I try to practice this every day because I know that all we have is this moment, which can kind of be a bummer when you think about how fragile life is, but it can also be inspiring and it can help you live with intention. So that's what we're doing here. We're talking about this moment and the choices we make and how we make the best out of everyone, because it's all we have. And I really want all of us to have the best chance of success, the best chance of fulfillment, the best chance of living in alignment with our purpose. Now, I'm recording this on Christmas Eve, which is a special day for me because it's the day I officially started dating my husband. Fun fact, we also call it Bad Friend Day because that day, 23 years ago, I asked my friend not to leave me alone with this guy, and she did. And so now here we are, 2 decades later. I had made a risky choice back then by dating someone who was older than me, and I actually lost a lot of friends over it. And, I don't blame them, I guess. I was 22 and he was over 40. And honestly, now I'm in my 40s and I look around and I don't feel like there's anything I have in common with 20-year-old dudes other than maybe a love of Crocs. But say what you want, it's been many years and I love my husband very much. And we both know that this is a marriage that's forever, a love that is forever. I can look at my choice in hindsight and see how much I've changed, including some values and some priorities. But I don't ever regret my choice. And I see the way that he has allowed me to blossom. I don't know who else could or would hype me up in the same way that he does. In fact, that's one of the things I love most about him is that he allows me to be me. In fact, I even asked him how he felt about all of this stuff that I'm trying to do here. And I had never asked him, and I didn't know how he would respond. But I was not surprised when he said that he believed that I could do anything and that he was my biggest fan. While it's unfortunate, I will take some lost friends for a love like that 23 years later. Sometimes we make a choice and we hope it works out. And sometimes we don't make a choice and eventually we run out of options. But the new year is upon us. Solstice has just given us the promise of light. And now we get to decide how we're going to show up in 2025, who we're going to be and what we are going to claim. And I don't know that I feel ready, but I'm going to do it anyway. Now I'm about to bring up something you probably haven't heard of in a long time, but I want to talk about the bell jar for a moment. I don't know if young women are still reading The Bell Jar, but I know many of us of a certain age did, and that book was one of those that meant something. And in our teenage melancholy, we saw ourselves reflected in the life of that character and her situation of being kind of awkward and bumbling, but intelligent and on a mission to find herself. The bell jar will always have a place in my heart, if for nothing else than for the fig tree analogy. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, which I'm going to guess that you don't, or need a refresher, basically, there's a scene in the bell jar where the character is sitting in a fig tree. And on every branch, she sees so many options in the form of figs. And so some of that's like a domestic life with husband and children. Some are lives of academia, travel and adventure, new lovers, new experiences, as well as so many figs or choices that are even too high for her to see. And she pictures herself sitting in the middle of this tree and she's starving because she's frozen with indecision. To choose one fig meant losing others. And as she sat in that indecision, previously fat figs withered and died because they were no longer viable, and each carried with it its own grief. How many times in my life have I felt like I was sitting in that tree, paralyzed by choice and the resulting indecision, often because I was trying to balance my wishes and reality. At my age, there is a laundry list of choices that I've made and an even larger list of choices that I abandoned. And some of those are more painful than others. What I always come back to is the grief I felt in giving up my dream of being a stay-at-home mother. If there was one memorable fig that I mourned once it fell, It was that one. I think of what it means in life to make choices, how we feel when we must make them, and how our experience changes based upon our season of life or our mental state. When you're young, the figs are bountiful and they stretch higher than your imagination. There's often the thought that you can go anywhere and be anybody, and if it doesn't work out, you can choose again. Figs aplenty. But then you want to make plans. You want to settle down. You want clear direction. And the situation gets scarier. Instead of abundance, we see that sometimes to get one thing, you must give up another. And as the ideas fall away, we often wonder, have I made the right choice? And sometimes we want to do it all, and we even take a run at it. Logically, we know that stuffing ourselves is actually a terrible option. We don't enjoy any of it, and it's just going to make us sick. But that does not prevent us from trying. After all, FOMO is real, and it has a nasty habit causing us to sign up not just for things that look appealing, but for the figs that other people have convinced us would be the most delicious. On the flip side, when we sit there unable to make any decision at all, that often points to debilitating anxiety or depression. At points in our life, we are really concerned with what we are losing, and it becomes scary to make decisions, knowing that there may be no going back. But it is in those moments we may remember that reaching out for something is better than starving. And often we need that as fuel in order to make the next choice. And then, of course, there are the choices that we do end up making out of want or necessity that made us leave other choices behind. Even when we love the results of the decisions we have made, sometimes there's no getting away from those nagging what ifs. All of this to say, when we make choices, we get feelings. Now, over the years, this analogy has changed a bit for me, but it is one I always come back to. This idea of figs as choices. But sometimes I look at other ways we might observe or act upon that tree. Now that I'm in my 40s, I can honestly say that I still have the what ifs, but I'm really at peace with less choices. You can relax a little bit when some are off the table. What I've noticed is that there are still plenty of figs above me, and they have been patiently waiting for me this whole time. I won't get all of them because there are still more choices than time or resources, but I will get the ones that are meant for me. Choices are hard, and there's grief in recognizing what has fallen away. We write about it, we talk about it, and we cry about it because there are seasons of our life where we must. I do that, but these days I also look upon a fig tree as a blessing and a symbol of confirmation. There was one on the grounds of the bed and breakfast that my husband and I purchased and then lost to foreclosure, which was a choice and a blessing and a loss all wrapped up into one. But it's an experience that I wouldn't want to trade. There's another one on the grounds of the cemetery where I transferred for work, confirmation that I did the right thing in moving my family from one city to another. These are all choices made and a life that I'm living. Some of my figs have been total duds, bitter, and I ate them with some annoyance. But I never met a real fruit that didn't have the possibility of being rotten or unripe or infested. It's just the game that we play when we decide to participate in life. I really want for this year to be a time of decision and ownership for me and for you. You're not going to get all the figs, and some of the figs that you do get will be gross. But the good ones, you're going to love them. I encourage you to sit and reflect on previous choices, which were hard but amazing in the end, which were subpar but an experience you needed in order to enjoy the good ones, and which ones fell before you got to them or were left consciously abandoned. I believe that they are all there for a reason, and that there is a certain level of excitement in owning all of it, which includes the fallen fertilizer. Who are you choosing to be in 2025? Look around you, find just the one that you are looking for, and go for it. Let this be the season where you decide what you want to be. And that may mean taking a hard look at yourself and your position. That may mean apologizing or overcoming. That may mean total 180. But you don't have to be someone new tomorrow. And overall change takes time. So I encourage you to just reach out your hand, take one bite and then another. Celebrate the stuff that worked out and mourn and maybe dissect the stuff that didn't. I do hope that when you are racked with indecision or mourning the loss of what could have been, that you make space to feel your feelings and that your next fig would be sweet. This has been the last episode of Owning Life for 2024. Please hit that subscribe so you won't miss an episode. They come out on Mondays. Choosing this creative outlet has been quite the endeavor and several years in the making. You spending this time with me is something I will never take for granted. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I will see you next week, and I pray that your new year would be blessed.